Hello, creepers. Before we dive in, hit like, subscribe, and drop in the comments the worst place you can imagine during a zombie outbreak. Now let's get to it. I had never seen so many people in one place. The fields of Bethel stretched out like a sea of bodies, all swaying, laughing, shouting, and losing themselves in the music. The air was thick with smoke from campfires and joints, with the heavy summer heat pressing down on all of us. Every direction I looked, there were tents, blankets, bare feet in the mud, and long hair tangled by the wind. I had come here for the music, for freedom, for the sense that the world could be different, if only for a few days. On stage, a band hammered out a blues riff so loud it shook in my chest. People danced wildly, some spinning in circles, others just swaying with closed eyes, as if they were in another universe. I was right in the middle of it, one of 500,000 souls crammed together, and for a while I forgot about everything else. The war, the protests, the mess waiting for me back home. Here, all that mattered was the sound of guitars screaming into the sky. Still, I could not shake the feeling that something was off. It started small. Maybe it was the way some people in the crowd moved differently. Not just the spaced-out kind of different. Their movements were jerky, too stiff for the rhythm of the music. At first, I thought they were just too far gone on whatever they had dropped. But then I noticed the eyes. Glassy, wide, almost like they were staring through everyone else. A girl near me stumbled. She had been dancing with her friends a moment before, twirling in the mud with flowers braided in her hair. Now she collapsed face first into the dirt. Her friends laughed at first, probably thinking she was too high. But when they tried to lift her, she snapped up with a sound that didn't belong at a festival. A growl, low and wet. She lunged at one of them and bit down hard into his shoulder. The music kept going. The band didn't see what was happening. The crowd didn't notice. I was close enough to hear the man scream, to see the blood running down his arm. His friend shoved the girl back, but she came again, clawing with filthy hands. And then others around them started acting the same way. More stumbling, more sudden screams. It spread like fire in dry grass. People started backing away, but the crush of bodies was too thick. Panic doesn't move in straight lines. It hits like a wave. Some ran for the edges. Others just shoved blindly, trying to get space. The music finally stopped with a loud screech of feedback. That's when the screams replaced the guitars. I froze. My brain couldn't catch up with what my eyes were telling me. I had been to plenty of festivals. I had seen people trip hard, seen people overdose, even seen fights break out when tempers flared. But this was different. The girl was tearing at her friend's neck with her teeth. A man nearby was clawing at another's face, blood spraying as he bit off a piece of his cheek. And the worst part was how fast it spread. One moment someone was trying to help. The next moment they were on the ground, thrashing, biting, clawing. I stumbled backward into a group of strangers. One of them shouted at me to move, to run. But where could we run? The crowd was a living wall. People pushed, shoved, screamed, all trying to escape something they couldn't understand. I felt hands slam against my back, almost knocking me over. The mud sucked at my shoes as I fought to stay standing. That's when I smelled it. Not just the usual stink of sweat and smoke. This was coppery, heavy, sharp. Blood. Too much of it. It hit me in the throat and made me gag. I told myself to keep calm, but my heart was hammering. I turned to get out, to move anywhere but forward. In the distance, I saw people climbing the stage, trying to scramble out of the sea of bodies. Musicians dropped their instruments and ran. The illusion of peace, love, and music shattered in an instant, replaced by raw terror. Something deep down told me this wasn't a bad trip. This wasn't some mass freakout. This was something else, something worse, and I was trapped right in the middle of it. The crowd broke apart like a stampede. What had been a field of peace and music turned into a nightmare of screaming and shoving. People didn't know where to go. Some tried to push toward the road, others toward the stage, and others just ran in circles. I was caught in the middle, struggling to breathe as the crush of bodies squeezed tighter around me. A girl slammed into me, eyes wide, blood running down her arm. She begged me to help, but before I could even move, someone else barreled past and knocked her to the ground. I lost sight of her under the wave of feet stomping through the mud. Every time I turned my head, I saw more of them. People with that same dead-eyed stare. People who moved with jerks and spasms, biting at anyone who got too close. One man near me had blood pouring down his face. He grabbed onto me with desperate strength, begging me not to leave him. His skin felt clammy, cold, as if all the heat had drained from his body. Then his grip tightened into something unnatural, something crushing. His mouth opened, and before I knew it, he snapped his teeth toward my shoulder. I shoved him away so hard, he fell into the mud. And a second later, another screaming figure landed on him, biting deep into his throat. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I shoved forward, forcing myself toward the edge of the crowd. The air was filled with music equipment crashing, people wailing, and the sharp metallic stink of blood. Every few steps I tripped over someone on the ground. Some of them reached out weakly for help. Others lay still with glassy eyes. And some of them twitched, sat up, and started clawing at whoever was closest. The stage loomed ahead, but getting there was like trying to swim against a river. People poured in every direction, no coordination, no order. Some climbed the scaffolding, others pulled down speakers and used them as makeshift shields. I saw one guitarist swing his instrument like a club, smashing it across the head of a blood-soaked man who kept charging at him even after his skull split open. I ducked low, covering my head as I pushed past a group of panicked festival-goers. Someone grabbed me from behind, dragging me down into the mud. I turned, ready to fight, but it wasn't one of them. It was a kid, couldn't have been older than 16. He was sobbing, his clothes drenched in someone else's blood. He begged me not to leave him alone. For a moment I froze, torn between running and staying. But then I saw the horde behind him, people crashing forward with that same animal hunger in their eyes. I yanked the kid up and told him to stick close. Together we pushed toward the wooden fence that separated the field from the parking lot. People were already climbing over, screaming as they trampled each other. The fence cracked and swayed under the weight, bodies spilling over it like water breaking a dam. I shoved the kid up first, his sneakers slipping on the wet wood as I boosted him. He scrambled over just as the fence gave way. I went with it, crashing into the dirt on the other side. The parking lot was no safer. Cars were jammed tight, people pounding on windows and yanking doors open, desperate to escape. Engines revved as drivers tried to push their way out, tires spinning in mud and gravel. I saw one van lurch forward, running over two people before smashing into another car. The sound of metal crunching was swallowed by the endless chorus of screams. The kid grabbed my hand, shaking. His face was pale, eyes darting everywhere. He asked me what was happening. I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that we had to move. Standing still meant getting swallowed. We ran between rows of cars, ducking low as chaos tore through the lot. I kept looking back, and each time I saw more of them pouring through the fence. They weren't tired. They weren't slowing. They kept coming with an unnatural hunger, clawing at anything alive. A man ahead of us tried to start his pickup, fumbling with the keys. Before he could turn the engine, one of them yanked him out of the driver's seat and tore into his throat. The kid screamed and stumbled back. I pulled him along, my chest heaving, my legs burning as we pushed farther. There was no order, no control, only collapse. The dream of Woodstock had turned into a nightmare. Music, peace, and love had been replaced by blood, panic, and death. The festival grounds that had been alive with joy just hours earlier were now a killing ground. I didn't know if this was happening only here or everywhere. I didn't know if we were at the start of something bigger. All I knew was that the world I had walked into that morning was already gone, and if we didn't find a way out soon, we would be gone with it. The kid and I moved fast, weaving between cars as the screams behind us grew louder. Every time I glanced back, more of them spilled out of the field, their mouths open, their hands clawing. Some were covered in mud and blood, others still wearing beads and flowers from earlier in the day. The sight of them was wrong, like something beautiful twisted into something rotten. The parking lot was gridlocked. Every driver was trapped, honking, screaming, trying to push their way through cars that could not move. A few engines roared, tires spun, but most people were stuck. Some climbed onto their roofs, shouting for help. Others locked their doors and tried to hide inside, as if thin sheets of glass would hold back the nightmare coming for them. I pulled the kid toward a row of trees beyond the lot. My legs felt heavy, every step harder than the last, but I knew standing still meant death. We ducked low, sliding behind the trunk of an old oak. From there, I scanned the lot for any gap, any path out. That was when I saw it. A service road stretching away from the lot, mostly clear, just a few scattered cars parked along the side. It looked like our best chance. I pointed it out to the kid and told him we were heading that way. He nodded quickly, though his face was pale, his breathing ragged. We stayed low, darting from car to car. The chaos around us only grew. A man smashed a car window with his bare hands, blood streaking down his arms as he dragged a woman out and tore into her. Another car burst into flames, lighting up the lot in a hellish glow. The heat hit my face, sharp and dry, as smoke poured upward. The screams never stopped. The kid tripped over a body and nearly fell. I caught him by the arm and yanked him back to his feet. The body twitched. Its eyes snapped open, cloudy and pale, and its jaw stretched toward us. We ran before it could rise, our shoes slipping in the mud. The service road was closer now, just 100 feet. I told the kid to keep moving, no matter what. Behind us, the horde spilled deeper into the lot, slamming against car doors, climbing onto roofs, dragging people down into the mud. Some of the trapped drivers finally forced their way out, but instead of clearing a path, the cars crashed and blocked the way even worse. We sprinted onto the road, our breath loud in the stillness compared to the chaos behind us. For a moment, it felt like escape, but the silence didn't last. A figure stumbled from the tree line ahead. His clothes were shredded, his chest soaked with blood. At first, I thought he was a survivor, but then he let out that same guttural growl I had already heard too many times. His body jerked forward, faster than it should have moved, and his dead eyes locked on us. I pushed the kid behind me and grabbed a loose branch from the ground. It was thick, heavy, rough in my hands. The figure lunged, I swung hard. The crack of wood against skull echoed down the road. He dropped, but not for long. His hands clawed at the dirt, pulling himself back up. I swung again. This time the branch broke, splinters cutting into my palm. The figure collapsed, still twitching, until finally it stopped moving. My hands shook as I dropped what was left of the branch. The kid stared at me, horrified. I told him we had to keep going. We followed the road deeper into the trees, away from the festival grounds. The music was gone. The cheering was gone. All that remained was the sound of distant screams, carried on the night air. Every step felt heavier, like the weight of what we had seen was pressing down on both of us. I didn't know where the road led. Maybe to another lot, maybe to a farmhouse, maybe nowhere at all. But it was away from the chaos, and for now, that was enough. Still, I couldn't shake the thought that we were not running to safety. We were only running to the next nightmare waiting for us in the dark. The road stretched deeper into the woods, winding and narrow, lit only by the glow of the moon. Each step away from the festival felt like peeling myself out of one nightmare and stepping into another. The kid stayed close, clutching my arm as if letting go meant death. His breathing was shallow, almost wheezing, and I could feel how badly he was shaking. For the first time since the chaos began, there was no screaming around us. Only the sound of our footsteps crunching dirt and the occasional crack of a branch in the trees. Silence should have been comforting, but instead it pressed in like a weight. I kept expecting shapes to appear from the shadows, waiting to tear us apart. The kid finally spoke, his voice breaking. He asked me if his friends were dead. He asked if anyone was left back at the festival. His questions cut deep, because I didn't have answers. I didn't even know what had happened to the friends I came with. I had left them hours earlier to get closer to the stage, and now I had no idea if they were alive, dead, or worse. I wanted to tell him there was hope. I wanted to say we would find them, but lies would not help. Instead, I told him the only truth I had, that we had to keep moving, no matter what, that stopping meant dying. He nodded, but I could see the tears in his eyes. We came across an old camper parked off the road, half hidden in the trees. Its windows were dark, its paint peeling, but it was shelter. I told the kid to stay behind me as I pushed the door open. The hinges groaned, loud in the stillness, and for a moment I thought something would leap out. But inside, it was empty. Dusty blankets on the seats, empty cans on the floor. Nothing else. We stepped inside and shut the door. The air was stale, thick with the smell of mildew, but at least it felt like a barrier between us and whatever was out there. The kid sat down hard on one of the seats, burying his face in his hands. I slid down opposite him, my muscles aching, my palms still raw from the splintered branch. That was when the weight of it all hit me. The music, the laughter, the dancing just hours ago. It was gone. In its place was blood, screaming, and the sound of bones breaking. I thought about the girl in the mud, biting her friend. I thought about the man I shoved away, who was dragged down seconds later. I thought about the faces of strangers who had been alive one moment and torn apart the next. And then I thought about the people I knew, my friends. Somewhere in that crowd, maybe they had been screaming for me. Maybe they were still out there, running, hiding, or already gone. The guilt pressed down harder than any fear. I had left them behind, and I did not know if I would ever see them again. The kid broke the silence again. He asked me my name. It felt strange to say it out loud, like names no longer mattered in this new world. But I told him anyway. He told me his. Hearing it grounded me, reminded me he wasn't just a tag-along. He was a person, someone clinging to me because I was all he had left. I told him I would try to keep him safe. It was a promise I wasn't sure I could keep, but I saw how much he needed to hear it. His shoulders eased a little, though his eyes stayed haunted. We sat there in silence for a long time, listening. Every creak of the camper made me tense. Every rustle outside felt like a warning. I gripped the broken branch I had carried with me, though I knew it would not last much longer as a weapon. Eventually, exhaustion pulled at me. My eyelids grew heavy, my body begging for rest. But I knew sleep was dangerous. I forced myself to stay awake, to keep watch. Through the cracked window, I could see the faint glow in the distance, the fires back at the festival still burning. Smoke rose into the night sky like a beacon, a reminder of everything we had lost. The kid asked me one more question before he finally drifted off. He wanted to know if the world would ever go back to the way it was. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe it, but I could not. Not after what I had seen. So I stayed quiet, staring at the glow of the distant flames, and let the silence answer for me. I woke the kid before dawn. His face was pale, his clothes still streaked with mud and blood, but his eyes opened quickly, as if he had not really been sleeping at all. I told him we had to move. Staying in the camper felt safe, but it was only an illusion. If they found us, we would be trapped inside like animals in a cage. We slipped back onto the service road. A heavy mist clung to the trees, muffling sound and hiding the path ahead. Every step felt cautious, my ears straining for anything that did not belong. Birds, wind, the normal sounds of the forest. None of them came. The world was unnaturally still. We moved quickly, staying low. The kid asked me where we were going. I told him the road had to lead somewhere, maybe to a farmhouse, maybe to town. I did not know if that was true, but I needed him to believe it. I needed to believe it myself. The quiet did not last. Somewhere behind us came the sound of branches breaking. At first, faint, then louder, closer. Something was moving through the woods. Not one thing. Many. The sound of feet dragging through leaves, hands slapping against bark. I grabbed the kid's arm and pulled him faster. He stumbled, but we kept going, the mist swallowing everything behind us. The road curved sharply, and that was when we saw it. A small wooden bridge stretching over a narrow creek. On the other side stood a farmhouse, its windows dark, its roof sagging but still intact. For the first time since the outbreak began, I felt a flicker of hope. Shelter. Maybe supplies. Maybe people. We ran across the bridge, the wood groaning under our weight. Halfway across, the sound behind us grew into a roar. Shapes appeared in the mist, dozens of them spilling onto the road, their eyes catching the dim light. They moved faster now, no longer stumbling. They sprinted, arms swinging, jaws snapping. The kid screamed, but I pulled him forward. We made it across just as the first of them hit the bridge. The wood shuddered, boards cracking as the horde pushed onto it. I grabbed a loose plank from the railing and slammed it down on the supports. The bridge gave way with a splintering crash, the center collapsing into the creek. Bodies tumbled down in a pile, thrashing in the shallow water. But the collapse did not stop all of them. More poured from the trees, skirting the edges of the creek, climbing over each other to get across. I shoved the kid toward the farmhouse, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. The front door was locked. I kicked it, once, twice, 3 times, until the frame splintered and we stumbled inside. The air was thick with dust. Old furniture sat draped in sheets. and the smell of mold clung to the walls. I shoved a cabinet against the broken door just as the first figure slammed against it. The wood rattled, hinges creaking, but it held for the moment. We ran deeper into the house, searching. The kitchen cupboards were empty, the sink dry. In the living room, we found a rusted fireplace poker, heavy and solid. I handed it to the kid. His hands shook, but I told him to hold on to it like his life depended on it. Because it did. The pounding on the door grew louder. Windows cracked as hands smacked against the glass. Their growls filled the house, echoing off the walls. The kid looked at me with wide eyes, asking what we were going to do. I didn't have a plan. All I knew was we couldn't stay here. I spotted a narrow staircase leading up. We took it 2 steps at a time. At the top was a hallway with 3 doors. The first opened into a bedroom, the second into a bathroom. Both were empty. The third door was locked. I slammed my shoulder into it until it broke open. Inside was an attic ladder folded into the ceiling. The pounding downstairs grew louder. Wood splintered. Windows shattered. I yanked the cord and pulled the ladder down. Dust poured from the ceiling as it unfolded. I told the kid to climb. He hesitated, but I pushed him up, shouting for him to move. He scrambled into the attic just as the sound of the front door breaking filled the house. I climbed after him, pulling the ladder up as soon as my feet left the floor. The attic was cramped and hot, filled with old boxes and broken furniture. We crawled toward a small window at the far end. Through it, I could see the creek and the bridge, bodies still writhing in the water. More figures moved in the mist, drawn by the noise. The kid whispered that we were trapped. I put a hand on his shoulder and told him we weren't done yet. Not as long as we were still breathing. But inside, I felt the truth pressing down. We were cornered, surrounded, with nothing but rotten wood between us and the horde below. The sound of claws and fists pounded against the walls, the floorboards groaning as if the entire house was being torn apart. The kid gripped the poker like it was his only anchor to the world. My hands tightened on the broken branch I still carried, its splinters digging deep into my skin. We had survived the festival. We had made it through the road. But now, as the house shook under the weight of the dead, I realized survival was only getting harder, and the journey through hell was far from over. The pounding below shook the floorboards like a drumbeat. Each slam of fists and claws rattled the walls, dust sifting down from the ceiling into my hair. The kid sat beside me, clutching the fireplace poker so tight his knuckles had gone white. His eyes darted to the small attic window, then back to me, as if waiting for an answer I didn't have. I forced myself to breathe slow, to think. Panic would get us killed just as fast as the horde beneath our feet. I crawled to the window and pushed it open. Cool air rushed in, damp with mist and the smell of wet earth. Below, the creek cut a narrow line through the woods. More of them were on the far bank now, drawn by the noise of the house. The bridge was gone, but they didn't care. They waded through the water, dragging themselves toward us, unstoppable. The kid whispered my name, his voice trembling. He asked what we were going to do. I didn't want to admit the truth, that we were boxed in with nowhere to go. So I pointed to the tree line beyond the creek. If we could make it there, maybe we could lose them in the woods. Maybe. The window was too small for me to climb out quickly, but the kid could fit. I told him I'd lower him first, then follow. His eyes went wide. He shook his head, saying he wouldn't leave me. I put a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. I told him we didn't have a choice. If we stayed, we'd be torn apart. The floor below groaned, wood splintering under the relentless weight. The door to the attic wasn't built to hold against hundreds of fists. It wouldn't last much longer. I pulled the kid closer to the window and told him to get ready. He climbed onto the ledge, legs shaking as he squeezed through. I gripped his arms, lowering him as far as I could before letting go. He dropped the last few feet, landing hard in the dirt. He scrambled to his feet, looking up at me with terror in his face. I gave him a nod and told him to run for the trees as soon as I hit the ground. I swung my legs through the window. The roof's shingles were slick with dew. My boots slid as I lowered myself down. Behind me came the sound of wood snapping, the attic door giving way. Growls filled the narrow space. I didn't look back. I dropped the last few feet and hit the ground. Pain shot up my knees, but I stayed upright. The kid grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the trees. Shapes were already rounding the side of the house, drawn by the noise. Dozens of them, maybe more. Their eyes caught the moonlight, empty and hungry. We ran. The ground was soft, mud sucking at our shoes, branches whipping at our faces as we sprinted for the tree line. Behind us, the house shuddered as the dead poured through it, spilling into the yard. Their screams cut through the night, a chorus of hunger that chased us into the dark. The trees swallowed us. Branches clawed at my jacket. Roots threatened to trip me. But we kept moving. The kid stumbled, nearly falling. But I yanked him back up. We had no time to stop. Not now. The sound of pursuit was close. Too close. They crashed through the undergrowth, faster than I wanted to believe they could move. My lungs burned, my chest tight, but I pushed harder. Every step was a choice, run or die. Then, through the trees, I saw it. A faint glow. Not fire, not the orange of burning cars or houses. This was steady, pale, electric. A light. A house? A building? Maybe even a road with working lamps. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time since the festival. I pointed it out to the kid. His eyes lit up, his face breaking from terror into something like relief. We weren't running blind anymore. We had a direction, a goal. The dead howled behind us, the sound carrying through the forest. They were still coming, but the light was there, waiting. I tightened my grip on the kid's hand, pulling him faster. We had made it this far. We weren't done yet. And for the first time since the world had ended, I believed we might still have a chance. The light pulled us forward like a rope. Through the mist and trees, it flickered pale and steady. Not fire, not chaos, but something controlled. My chest ached with every breath, my legs heavy as stone, but I forced myself to keep running. The kid stumbled beside me, clutching the fireplace poker like it was the only thing keeping him alive. Maybe it was. Behind us, the dead were closing in. I could hear their ragged breaths, their snarls as they crashed through the brush. They weren't slowing, weren't tiring. The woods seemed to funnel them straight at us, their hunger pushing us faster than our bodies wanted to go. Branches clawed at my arms and face as we broke through the tree line. Ahead, the glow sharpened. A road, an honest stretch of asphalt cutting through the forest. And beyond it, the source of the light. An old gas station, its sign buzzing faintly. One flickering bulb fighting against the night. I grabbed the kid's arm and pointed. "There! Move!" We sprinted onto the road, our shoes slapping hard against the cracked pavement. The gas station loomed closer, its windows dark, the light above the pumps casting long shadows. It looked deserted, abandoned like everything else, but the light meant power. Power meant a chance. The kid gasped beside me. "What if it's locked?" "Then we break it," I said. The sound of pursuit grew louder. They were spilling from the trees now. a wall of pale faces and snapping jaws. My stomach dropped. We had seconds, maybe less. We hit the station door. Locked. I slammed my shoulder into it, pain flaring down my arm. The glass rattled, but held. Behind me, the kid raised the poker and smashed it against the glass. The pane cracked, spiderwebbing outward. He hit it again, and this time it shattered inward. "Go!" I shouted, shoving him through. He scrambled inside, landing hard on the linoleum floor. I dove in after him, the broken edges cutting at my jacket. I shoved a display rack against the door just as the first of them slammed into it from outside. The glass groaned, fragments still clinging to the frame, as pale hands shoved through, clawing at the air. The kid stumbled to his feet, wide-eyed, shaking. What now? I scanned the dark interior. Shelves stood half empty, dust thick on the counters. But in the corner, near the register, I saw it. A trap door, its handle bolted into the floor. A basement, maybe storage, maybe a way to hide. "Help me," I said, dragging the rack across the floor to block more of the door. The pounding outside grew harder, the whole frame rattling. The kid jammed the poker into the crack like a brace. It wouldn't hold for long, but maybe long enough. I pulled at the trap door handle. It creaked, stiff with rust, then gave way. Stale air rushed up, cool and damp. A wooden ladder stretched into the dark below. I turned to the kid. "Down, now!" He hesitated, eyes flicking to the pounding door. The frame was already cracking. I didn't have time to argue. I shoved him toward the opening. He climbed down, the ladder groaning under his weight. I followed, pulling the door shut above me, just as the glass finally shattered. The basement smelled of mildew and gasoline. Rows of shelves lined the walls, some stacked with old cans and boxes. In the center stood a generator, its faint hum matching the flicker of the light outside. My heart hammered. It was still running, still alive. The kid whispered, "We can stay here, right? They can't get in?" I wanted to believe it, but the pounding above told me otherwise. They would tear the station apart piece by piece until nothing was left. Hiding meant waiting to be buried alive. "No," I said. "We can't stay. We need another way out." We searched the basement fast, every shadow making me tense. My flashlight beam cut across boxes, rusted tools, shelves of old soda bottles. Then, in the far corner, I saw it. A door. Small, metal, half rusted, but still intact. An emergency exit. I grabbed the handle. Stiff. I pulled harder. It screeched open, the hinges fighting me. Beyond it, a narrow concrete stairwell led up, the faint glow of night at the top. Freedom. I turned to the kid. "This is it. When we go, we run and don't stop." He nodded, clutching the poker like a lifeline. The ceiling above cracked, dust raining down. Boards snapped as the weight of the horde pressed inward. Their snarls filled the basement, a chorus of death closing in. I shoved the kid toward the stairs. We scrambled up, each step echoing. At the top, a rusted hatch. I slammed my shoulder against it once, twice, until it burst open with a rush of cold air. We spilled out into the back lot of the station, weeds growing through cracked pavement. The night hit me like ice. The woods loomed behind us, alive with the sound of the dead. They would not stop. Not now. Not ever. I grabbed the kid's hand. "Run!" We sprinted into the dark, away from the gas station, away from the pounding horde. The flickering light faded behind us, swallowed by mist and trees. Ahead lay nothing but uncertainty. But it was open, alive, possible. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I didn't slow. The kid kept pace, his grip iron around my hand. For the first time since the music stopped at Woodstock, I felt it again. Hope, sharp and desperate, but real. We weren't safe, not yet, maybe not ever. But as long as we kept moving, we weren't dead either. And in this new world, that was enough. We didn't stop running until our bodies forced us to. My lungs burned like fire, every breath scraping my throat. The kid collapsed beside me on the side of the road, mud streaking his face, hands trembling as he clutched the fireplace poker. For a long moment, we just sat there in the dark, listening. The woods behind us were quiet again. The snarls and pounding had faded into the distance, swallowed by the night. My heart still raced, but the silence pressed in heavy, broken only by the kid's ragged breathing. He looked at me, eyes wide and wet. "Are we safe?" I didn't answer right away. The truth was, I didn't know. Safe wasn't a word that meant much anymore, but I couldn't let him see that fear. I put a hand on his shoulder and told him the only thing that mattered, that we were still alive. For now, that was enough. The road stretched out ahead, cracked and broken, vanishing into mist. No cars, no people, just emptiness. Somewhere in the distance, I thought I heard the faint buzz of power lines, a reminder that not everything in the world had gone dark. If the lights still worked here, maybe they worked somewhere else. Maybe there were still people out there. We walked slow, every step heavy. My legs screamed to stop, but I knew we couldn't. Stopping meant giving the night a chance to catch us. The kid stayed close, never letting go of the poker, his eyes darting at every sound. He was still just a kid, but after everything, he moved with the same grim focus I felt. Survival had burned away whatever childhood he had left. The silence gave me too much time to think. Faces flashed through my mind. The girl in the mud, the man I shoved away, the friends I had lost in the crowd. I wondered if they were still out there somewhere, or if they had joined the endless horde chasing us through the woods. Guilt pressed heavy on my chest, but I forced it down. Regret wouldn't keep us alive. We came across an old road sign half hidden by vines. The paint was faded, but I could still read the words. Kingston, 12 miles. A town, maybe destroyed, maybe alive. 12 miles might as well have been 100, but it was something. A direction. The kid asked me if we would make it. I looked at him, at the dirt and blood caked on his face, at the exhaustion dragging him down. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to promise him the world. But I had learned the cost of promises in this new world. So I told him the truth. We would keep moving until we couldn't anymore. He nodded, as if that was enough. The road stretched on, endless and empty. The mist thickened, curling low over the asphalt. For a while, it was quiet. Too quiet. Then, carried faint on the breeze, came a sound that froze me in place. Not the guttural growl of the infected, not the chaos of a horde. This was different. Engines. The kid heard it too. He gripped the poker tighter, eyes wide. Headlights cut through the mist ahead, growing brighter as they approached. A vehicle, maybe more than one, rumbling toward us from the direction of Kingston. Relief and fear twisted together in my chest. Survivors? Soldiers? Or something worse? I raised my hand to shield my eyes from the glare. The kid stepped closer, pressing against my side. We had escaped the festival. We had outrun the horde. But as the lights closed in, I realized something cold and certain. The real nightmare wasn't behind us. It was still waiting ahead.